And today I have my brand new friend here, Nicole Carter, and she is going today to introduce herself briefly, and we're going to be talking about relaxation and stress. Nicole, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Alicia. My name is Nicole. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I've had many jobs in social work. I've worked for Child Protective Services. I've worked for the VA. I've worked in the hospital. I've worked at your county level. And now I have a private practice. And I'm also a clinical supervisor, and I'm working with those who are on their way to becoming licensed, and I mentor and help them out. So I have a lot of different lived experience, but I'm a social worker at heart.
Yes, and I think social workers have an extra special place in heaven. We earned
it.
We have earned it. We have seen and heard it all. And I really do think it's a privilege to be in that position where you can learn things about people and listen to things about people that nobody else in this whole world knows about. So it's a privilege. And
it is.
Yeah, and we get to interact with people sometimes at their lowest. And then help to bring them back up. So I call myself a social worker before I call myself a therapist, before I call myself a professor, before I call myself a mom, before I call myself anything. I always like to say I am a social worker. So
yes, I'm with you in that. High school, junior high, I was like a peer counselor. I've always been that person. Maybe I'm just nosy. I think a lot of that is I'm curious and nosy as well. I think that's a great trait to have if you're looking to go into the social work field. But yes, definitely.
Oh, that is so cool. And I love when we get into this profession and then we start to have a specialization. We start to figure out what's going on with people and their problems. And then we're saying, you know what, here's how I want to help. And the reason why I wanted to interview you this day, well, number one, you are my Instagram crush. I have a big crush on you on Instagram. I love all of your videos, and you're not saying anything. You're just relaxing everybody who can see you. and I don't know if you understand that impact. But you have that.
I love hearing that. I love hearing that it translates.
Yes.
It's translating over.
Yeah, and so I want you to be able to now talk more about it. How do you use relaxation, all of that deep breathing with your clients?
Yeah, so the thing about relaxation, and we kind of got to talk beforehand, is that what I'm really trying to do in those videos is I'm trying to send a message of safety to my nervous system. So I think the reason why the videos work is we have mirror neurons. So it's the things that we have the capacity that when we see somebody else doing something, we actually perceive it in ourselves as having done it. So that's why the phrase, children will watch what you do, not what you say, because of those mirror neurons that we have in our brain. And the second part is I'm usually really doing it real time. I'm usually really trying to create a sense of safety, because what happens in safety, my thinking brain can come back online, and then I can be more creative with solutions. I can be more present with my child. I can be more available to my clients, because once I get stressed, and if I don't attend to that stress in the moment, it could trigger and trick my body into thinking it's a trauma response. And so what I'm really hoping to do is to help people give themselves a moment to allow yourself to say, I'm freaking out right now.
I really like that, and I will tell you, it is contagious. There's emotional contagion going on. When I see you do that, it's just like, oh, I'm going to sit and see what Nicole's doing. I sometimes go to your page and say, I haven't heard from Nicole lately. Let me see how she's doing.
Yeah. And then so what I'm hearing you say is just by the very act of watching, can you maybe tell the audience what it does for you, though? What does it what do you get physiologically, or what do you think when you're watching?
Well, I mean, yeah, so the contagion and the mirror neurons make sense, because even I will just stop and do it. I'll stop and do the tapping, and I know how the tap, it's it works. That's all we know. Like data tells us it works. The tapping works. I don't know how and why. Like, why tap the side of your face in this one little spot? It just works, right? And and so it just reminds me to do that, because, and it also reminds me to check in with myself and how I relax. And one way to get myself going is that I do long distance running. And we were talking about that. Long distance running is like, it's okay. So the benefit of long distance running is for me to relax. It helps me to relax. The side effects is health, right? I have a healthy heart, and those are the side effects. But the main reason for the long distance running is for my mental health. Like, I feel like it just helps me deal with stress so much more.
Love that. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that for you.
Yes, it is good for me.
You do some long distance, right?
Yeah.
But you inspired me. You inspired me.
Yes, you live in California, I think, so you got the perfect weather for that.
We do, and I have a rule about 3 miles. 3 miles, whatever I start with, at the end of 3 miles of jogging, I'm no longer thinking about it. And I can feel the moment it starts to leave my body. So you probably when you're doing you can feel, and you get to predict, like, I know I'm going to stop thinking about this. I know I'm going to be free. I know I'm going to be present with my breath and my space. So beautiful. You have found something to where your nervous system, A, is not thought up in your thoughts, and B, you're in tune with your body so that you're perfectly in the moment.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it's so funny because I talked about my mom. She's a therapist too, and she gets it through yoga. She does yoga, and I don't get it through yoga. Believe it or not, it just doesn't have that effect on me. My body has to move, so I get it through long distance running. And she's like, I cannot do that. Don't have me running. But she can do yoga, and that's how she gets to where she needs to be.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm really doing with the relaxation, and I love that word, because that is what the language of, where people say, oh, I need to learn how to relax. But the trick is, I'm really, really sending a message that it's safe to my amygdala and to my nervous system. And once I can assure it that I'm safe, we're safe, then that's when I can feel the benefit of truly relaxing. And again, the side effect of that is that you have more creative solutions. You're more present with the people around you. You're able to communicate your feelings and thoughts more effectively. There's just a lot of beautiful benefits to it.
Very nice. And I'm wondering then, in trying to get to a relaxed body, what techniques or framework do you use with your clients to help get them there where they need to be, especially those who have unresolved trauma or painful memories?
It's a lot of slow going. And so I have the 5 A's, my 5 A's, right? Just let's get the A's. Let's let's ace this. Let's get to this. We all start with the A in life. You know what I mean? You ask people on a scale 1 to 10, what do you think you are? And you hear people, I'm a 7, I'm a 5. We all start school with A's, right? Mm-hmm. So we maintain them despite how we show up in life. And so the first A is awareness. So it's really that awareness. I'm private practice and private pay. So that is a good indicator that people they're not being forced into services, so they have an awareness. They're like, something's going on. I'm not sleeping. I'm more anxious. They have an awareness that something is going on. And what we do in therapy is we work on acknowledging it, because a lot of them are environments where they have an awareness that something's going on, but it might not be safe to acknowledge it, or the people around them deny the truth of what they're experiencing. So you have awareness, we're going to acknowledge, and then what we're going to do is we're going to allow. And we do this with children all the time. When children are hurt or they get scared, they get aware that they're scared, and then we acknowledge them. We say, oh, okay, you're scared. And then we allow, okay, it's okay. You can come sit next to me, right? That's the attending, right? We allow them though. Now, some kids grow up, don't be scared, don't cry. But if we can allow it, and then we can attend to it. Oh, do you need a hug? Do you want me to search for the monster under the bed? Do you want me to get you a glass of water? Attending to that nervous system letting that, because we've allowed it, and then we take that action, which is, like I said, what do you need me to do? What is your nervous system need right now? And hopefully that action that we get after doing the awareness, the acknowledgement, the allowing, and attending, hopefully that action now is more conducive to your real need. It's really now that my nervous system has calmed down, and I've got this signal of safety, maybe what I really need, right, is for, you to read to me at night, every night. I just need help going to sleep. I need help transitioning from the day. But if you don't do the first 4 steps, then your actions and behaviors, people don't understand. Why are you acting like this? Why do you do this? And then people come to see me because they're like, Nicole, my spouse, my kids, at work, nobody likes me, or I don't like anybody. It's them. It's them, Nicole. It's them. So that's the framework: awareness, acknowledgement, allowing, attending, and taking action.
Oh, I mean that. I feel like when I'm thinking of scenarios when I work with my couples, there are so many times, that's kind of what we get down to. Like, okay, so we see you have these complaints and we see it's legitimate and we can acknowledge, you got to acknowledge and validate each other, and then somehow say, okay, I'm sorry, I can see how I played that role in that. But at the end of it all, there's an unmet need, I find, between couples. And when I get down to it and I say, what is your unmet need that's causing you to behave in this way? And it's sometimes their need, I say, just name it. Anything that you want. What's your unmet need? And you'll be so surprised what they'll say. They'll say, well, I just want them to go for a walk with me. I said, really? So, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, you're doing all of these things, and your unmet need is just somebody to walk with you around the block? Or your unmet need is, what I really need is a hug.
Connection, right. Or assurance, reassurance.
Reassurance. Yeah. And I just need quality time. I need you to spend time with me. And it's so interesting how, helping individuals who are married or in relationships break it all down to this unmet need. So much of that is surprising how the needs are like not that great. No one's asking for like a big diamond ring. No one's asking for a brand new car. I'm like, just name it. They're asking for like, I would like for you to hold my hand. And I'm like, okay. So I'm saying, listen, when they behave this way, maybe you should start holding their hand. Like, it's so therapeutic. And it really is a breakthrough moment with, a lot of couples, once they realize this is just basic needs that aren't being met. What do you think about that?
You've nailed it. And I want to give you all the credit that you're working with couples. I dabbled one time into couples therapy. Woo! Oh, no. Yeah. So, the fact that you're working with couples, and yes, it's everything that you're saying, an unmet need. And when we go through those 4 steps, I'm focusing on what we call regulating the nervous system to create safety, so that when you get down to saying what that unmet need is, you now feel safe enough to say it, and you really know that that's really intrinsically the unmet need. And then, like you say, I just want you to hold my hand. Okay, so what would holding that hand do for you? It would give me reassurance that they're not mad at me. It would give me reassurance that they hear me. It would make me feel safer, better. And when you start understanding that there's the personality, but there's this nervous system that constantly is assessing, for threat, constantly, where our nervous system is really only in 2 states: connection or protection.
Interesting. Okay.
That's it. Your nervous system, we have a whole strata, a vagus nerve, and amygdala that's assessing, but your brain body state it's only really 2 states: connection or protection.
Yeah. And if it's so interesting, if you're ever curious about your loved one's behavior, they see everything through that. I'll say, okay, are they doing this because they're trying to connect with me, or are they doing this because they're trying to protect themselves?
Yes.
There you go. And it helps us not to be so offended by people's behavior, because it's not really about you.
That's the beauty, right? That's why they come to us and pay us, because we take the time to peel back so that we can get to and make it okay that there's an unmet need. It's not a reflection of this partner. It's sometimes I didn't even know I needed that.
Yeah, I think like what you're saying is like so cool. And you know, for me personally, I've been coming across clients and just people that I know where when you start getting into tell me about what's going on that you aren't able to regulate yourself, and we get into a lot of origin, you know, household origin, and for many of us, we start to realize that this parenting issue is just like you didn't have a responsive environment, and your primary caregiver, for whatever reason, either they were stressed, either they were busy, either they were young, either they were they themselves had trauma they were trying to sort through, but whatever it is, they weren't able to give children who are now adults, adult children of abuse and neglect, they weren't able to give them what they need so that they could regulate themselves. And you spoke about the awareness, and one thing I'm finding is that once we make things aware of what's happening, it's very difficult for individuals to digest that, because at the same time, we're looking at some of the behaviors in their household growing up that was inflicted on them, or things that should have been done that wasn't, by the hands of their parents. So, you know, how do you come to grips with that? Because this is my mom, this is my dad. I've always been told I need to respect my mom and dad no matter what. But at the same time, these were the people that have made me now, as an adult, unregulated person that's losing it and felt and was in a lot of ways actually abused by them, and not felt comfortable expressing my unmet need. And it's this sort of like anxiety that happens because it's earth shattering, because you have now shattered their belief, because now they see themselves in this awareness as a traumatized person from the hands of someone who is supposed to love them. Like moms are supposed to love their children no matter what. Fathers are supposed to care for their children. And here now I have this. How do I now honor and respect my parents when they at the same time were the individuals who inflicted all of this on me? And so now I can't have a difficult time in relationships because I'm falling apart emotionally. Like, this is a real question. How do we overcome this and get through? And what's the best language, safe language to use in these situations?
Well, I think you did a beautiful job of speaking for so many of us. Mm-hmm. I think you just did a wonderful job of communicating so many of our experiences. And that awareness, it is the hardest part. Mm-hmm. It is the highest part. And you said it then creates anxiety. So I have this awareness that, so you mean the reason why I am the way I am is because of them or that? Well, I love them or that. Mm-hmm. And I've lived my life. Now this is where we start to acknowledge what they've had to do, what their nervous system had to do to survive and deal and cope with that lack. So when I say, well, you know what happens is that our nervous system gets very creative, that if a need can't get met this way, it learns these responses, whether that's fawning, which is to align with parents and fantasize, and if I just make everybody happy, it's called people pleasing in layman's terms. Fawning is also called people pleasing. But I just want to respect. I just want to go very slowly here for people who are listening, because people will go, that's me right off the bat. I put everybody else first. I make sure everybody else is fine. But I want to slow down, and I really want my clients and people listening to appreciate what the nervous system does and how it figures out a way to deal with the unmet need. Nobody teaches somebody how to be a people pleaser. It's like the nervous system looks around at the environment and based on its experience, figures out a way. Some kids get angry. They spend their life being angry, but you know what angry does? It keeps people at bay. Some people run away, flight. But you know what distance does? It means that when I come around, you probably got to be on your best behavior for that short period of time that I come around so that we never have to deal with. And then what shutdown, turtling does is that it makes you try to be invisible. And so then people just don't ask you about yourself. And so when we acknowledge that the fact that they have either fantasized about their parents or made an understanding they're immigrants, they're from we're Haitian culture, we're this culture, we're Asian culture, we're Black Southerners, we don't talk about emotions. I don't take that away. I actually say, look at how amazing and look at how wonderful and how resilient that little body at that age figured out a way to deal with and cope with.
That is really cool. Yeah, that is a good way to kind of honor and respect
themselves, not the parents anymore, not the primary. We put the honor and respect back on the individual.
Back on the individual. So it doesn't feel like you're tearing down these people who you love. It feels more like this is what I've been through and this is what I'm experiencing, and just honoring that in terms of the nervous system.
Yes. And then when we see it that way, now we don't have to judge ourselves maybe for how we have showed up. Right. And unfortunately, a lot of people grow up with being guilted and shamed into things. And so as adults, they just shut down. They don't do emotions because emotions were not safe to express in their childhood. So they go straight to action. These are people who go straight to action. They don't want to talk about it. They don't need to talk about it. They got to fix it. This is what we got to do. And so that acknowledgement piece is that second piece where we're acknowledging you have this awesome, phenomenal support system within you, okay? And it had to be creative. And then when we get to allowing is maybe allowing them to take those situations and say, what really would have been nice if someone had da-da-da-da-da.
Yes.
What really would have helped me at that time was to know da-da-da-da-da. And that's how we start the allowing of that nervous system to feel safe enough to say what it needed.
That is really good, and it's so interesting. I'm bringing it into couples. You can do some good couple work. Yeah, and that's what I do with some couples. Is I say, what would you have liked to have seen happen? You know, and they say, you know what I really would have loved for him to do? I would have loved for him to have just called me back. I would have loved for him to just check in on me. Like, what would have been an ideal scenario? Because this scenario isn't working. So it is something that I use a lot with my couple.
You're doing it. You're doing the work.
It's really, and it really is almost like a turning point, you know, for a lot of people. It just say, okay, so you got to kind of like consciously know, because a lot of things are just unconscious. People just doing stuff. But you have to now consciously know, okay, when he's doing this is what he really wants from me. You know, it's being able.
And the first part is the first part is a little because I do individuals, so I'm very big on individual. Is that we have to. Here's the thing: you're a parent, I'm a parent, and I think you and I have had the benefit of. You've had the benefit of having people who made you feel seen, heard, and cared about. Okay. And I didn't have a lot of people, but I had a few. I had enough people that made me feel seen, heard, and cared about that, I'm able to look at what's happening with me. So before you can have self-regulation, you have to have co-regulation.
Yes.
And that's the missing part, is that a lot of us grew up without co-regulation. And so all we have is survival and stress responses. Because we never had what happened? What happened? Oh, so-and-so pushed me. Oh, someone pushed you? Now, instead of me, now as the parent now, I have to stay with the kid. Because if I hear my kid gets pushed, the challenge is for me to self-regulate and not get angry or whatever, but to stay with the kid, to allow the kid to just say, and it hurt my feelings, it embarrassed me, and allow that kid to have what they're having. What happens a lot of times with parenting, we're actually triggered by our kids. And it's not about the kid anymore. It is about what you're feeling inside of you. And it's either coming from past childhood stuff or your expectations about the future. So it's the past or the future. And in that moment, the distress that we feel activates a certain part of us. And then that's what we're putting onto the kid. And that's probably a lot of people how they grow up. So what really happens is that our own distress in the moment about parenting is actually what goes forward versus holding the space and allowing the kid to attend, and let them figure out. And so how can mommy help you? Well, it's fine. I'm just going to tell him tomorrow to leave me alone. Okay, and if you need help with that, you're going to let me know, right? And you just let me know. Versus, I'm going to go into that school and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Because now I'm teaching this kid, guess what? I don't want to tell mom next time because mom's going to get upset and mom's going to go do this thing. So now when something bad happens to me, I keep it to myself. Because I'm more worried about, well, mom is going to feel. And then your children are trained out of listening to themselves. They're just trained to focus on the adult, that whatever the adult needs, don't piss the adult off, don't make the adult mad, love the adult, make the adult happy. And at a little age, little kids are trained out of their natural nervous system that either tells them get mad, get sad, or try to run away.
Yeah, and it applies so closely with your interpersonal relationships when you get older. It really does.
Yes, because all that stuff is there.
All that stuff is there, and it's really interesting. And I do, like, even with my couples, I do have them. I said, tell a story about this. Tell a story. Let your partner know. What was this like for you when you were growing up? What does this remind you? What is this reminiscent of?
Yes, what does this remind you? That's one of my favorite questions in therapy. Yes. Is there another time this I love that question.
This is a strong emotion from you.
Yes, I love that question. Because then you can do that framework, right? What would you have liked at that time? And what would you wish would have happened at that time? And then they can see they're projecting it onto this moment, right?
And what I hope in telling the story at the other end of it, I got two people who are married to each other who are closer to each other now. It's like, oh, now I know you. Now I understand. And to have that safe space is so important. And it's great because I think a healthy relationship in your adulthood can help to, if you're open for it, can help to resolve some of those missed opportunities in your childhood.
Very much so. That's the beauty of relationships. Yeah. Whether it be intimate partners, whether that be friends, whether that be community, it does. It helps to go back in there and attend to the unmet need. And when you have an awareness around it and an acknowledgement around it, and then you can allow and not blame yourself for how you're showing up, you can get creative and communicate to people like, wait a minute, I'm hearing a lot of people starting to say things like, this doesn't feel safe. I'm like, wow. And, when you're hearing these kids, young people too, so it's been phenomenal. It's been very liberating, I think, for the nervous system. And that's all I'm trying to do is because I grew up in an era where kids were seen and not heard.
Yes.
That's the parenting I had. And so, in the juxtaposition, I think a lot of parents struggle with is they kind of want that because it makes things move faster because we have to do so much. But we now live in a generation where children are given a lot of choice. Children have more choice than ever in their environment. I didn't grow up with as much choice as these children have. And even I give my daughter a lot of choice, but I have to understand what comes with that is that when I say move, they will ask why.
Yeah, what's going on? And you're just like, and if you're busy, you're like, I don't have time to say
I'm the mom. When I say move, you move. Now my nervous system is getting activated. The child is grown up with truth and communication.
Yeah. We ain't ready for this new generation.
Yeah, right? I snapped back into I was not allowed to ask. I had to move. So, I'm 46 with an 11-year-old. So I didn't have my daughter till I was 34. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for it because this parenting has taught me and encouraged me to look at my unmet needs and to do work and go on my retreats and go to the yoga nidra training and do the things so that I can come in and be a parent that's present and allowing her to understand her own emotions, versus being so focused on making sure that she's not, activating me.
Yeah, and see, what's so beautiful in that, even as children, and if you get it as an adult, what we know is that when you do have that safe space with a significant other, or if you grew up with it, eventually you just present to the world as a confident person. It translates into your job. It translates into how you deal with extended family, how you deal with your friends, how you relate to yourself, all of these things, like just this sort of way of regulating yourself, this nervous system, getting that all into check. That's almost like the gold ticket into a lot of space.
It's a fast track. I mean, my clients, I've seen them. I had a client, frustrated. That was the start of it. I'm frustrated, Nicole, and had the conditioning of being frustrated was that in the path as a child and in different circles, when this person got frustrated, nobody would attend to it or call this person too sensitive or you're this. So what the coping mechanism wasn't it to shut down and get sad.
Right.
Okay. The thing about getting sad and shutting down and getting quiet is that a lot of people prefer you quiet, right? Because now it's like, because when I'm frustrated, I'm talking, I'm woo-woo-wah.
Disrupting
but
things.
If you do something that triggers me and then I go into shutdown, now I'm quiet. And the other person just feels like, okay, finally, they're quiet. But unfortunately, I held this client and I said, no, we're not slipping down to sad. Because sad is what comes in because you haven't historically had people around you to allow your frustration, to acknowledge. So what are you frustrated about? Let's go. Where do you feel it? And by the end of it, we really got down to this piece where I just don't feel, I can't. Well, why can't you? Yeah. What is that? And we got all the way down to a childhood trauma where no choice. No choice. And then we had to stay with that frustration long enough to allow it so that we could attend to it so that action, the next action she took was more reflective of giving herself that need, that meeting that unmet need. And it's just, a lot of people, the reality is that we're moving in such a fast pace. You can swipe, you can turn off, you can turn on, that people's tolerance, their distress, their tolerance for distress is very, what we call window of distress. It's very low. It's not wide. And so what I'm doing with the nervous system work is I'm trying to open up that window we call window of tolerance so that when you feel distress, you don't automatically have to kick into a coping, defense, or trauma response.
Yeah, that makes such good sense, because it's almost like we can tailor everything to what we already think and never see anything challenging. And we could just say, that makes me uncomfortable, so I'm just going to turn that off, and you're never able. How can you grow and expand and stretch if everything is just catering to you? It's tailored to you, and that's how it is in social media. And I understand how people need to be protected, and not be exposed to this, but I'm always concerned that there's this lack of being able to stretch because things are so in your space. Yeah. I
mean, I think that's part of the conversation for a lot of us that have been doing this about why are we seeing so much anxiety in young children?
Right.
They don't want to try. They don't want to attempt. They don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to, and some of that I do believe is that they are now given more choice than ever before. I don't know what to do about that. I'm not saying how to run people's household. I'm just looking at some of the contributing factors, okay? Is that they're exposed to way more than they've ever been. Technology moves so fast. I'm not telling people don't let your kids have phones. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that their distress tolerance, and because you got two parents who are working and doing this and doing that and moving so fast, podcast, if we're not doing that, I see you, I hear you, I care stuff, then yeah, the first sign of adversity, or what we call distress in our field, it's so uncomfortable. And if nobody's taught you how to breathe through it, if nobody's taught you how to do your little stomps, or if someone's told you when you go to throw your tantrum or throw your natural nervous system response of getting angry, I see you're getting angry, I think this means a lot to you.
Yeah, I mean, as you're talking, I'm a college professor, and I'm starting to see this in students, and I teach in the master's program, and part of my job is to challenge you. And so it's becoming really difficult. And there was an article written in Higher Education about the snowflakes of higher ed, how students are now coming and they're just like, but my professor challenged my thinking, and I can't deal. It's too much anxiety, and I can't deal with this. And I'm just like, this is what you sign up for when you go to college. Like, we're challenging your thinking a little bit. You have to come outside of your comfort zone, and it is a big dilemma in higher education because of this sort of, they call it snowflakes of higher ed.
Okay, I'm learning something today. Yeah. Okay.
It is really something. And I mean, in my profession, social work is such a value-based profession, so it is. We are going to be talking about all those sticky, icky issues, and you need to be comfortable talking about things that for most people, it's very uncomfortable to talk about. Like when I talk to another social worker, I can tell the difference than when I talk to someone that isn't. I have to kind of watch it because they're not as comfortable talking about taboo topics as I am, because they haven't been exposed to it as much. But yeah. So
yeah, and there's the flip side. There are people who've been exposed to so much that they don't, when I think about, I was watching a podcast, and it was a young woman, a woman of color, who was now saying that she was in therapy, and she was now actually very embarrassed about the period where she thought she was so sexually liberated, right? And she would talk about her conquest. She would talk about what it was for her, and, don't shame me. But she got in therapy, and she said, I didn't realize that actually was a trauma response.
Oh.
I didn't realize that because I had been exposed to so much in my early childhood that this seemed like, what's the big deal, right? What's the big deal? And so, again, like you're saying, with awareness, it is hard, but that's why you have to have, and a therapist. I think our secret sauce and why people pay us what they pay us is that we co-regulate.
Yes.
We are the co-regulators. So we are the ones who, when you're saying the hard thing, we let you slow down, we help you feel safe, so that you can get through it, so that you can, see that you can handle it. That's where the confidence starts coming in. Because you're like, I talked about that thing in therapy today, and it didn't wreck me. I talked about that thing in therapy, and I thought I was going to be triggered for the rest of the week. So that starts to build the confidence that, I can, which we call that your distress tolerance, your capacity for distress increasing. And then that other piece of, I lost my train of thought, but that other piece of just building confidence and knowing that I can talk about hard things, and being able to say, even looking back and going, what I thought might have been my liberation and my look at me and I'm so proud of me was actually maybe more of a trauma response.
The insight, the insightfulness that you get and you do your own behavior. It's pretty cool.
It is.
Yeah. Well, Nicole, this has been so much fun talking to you. I feel like I can talk to you forever, but
this is true.
But I can't.
We're on the clock.
I can't. But I wanted to know one last question before we end. Tell us what TV show are you watching now? What TV show are you into?
What TV show?
Yeah.
I love Abbott Elementary.
Yes.
I just got rid of my cable. So we love Abbott Elementary. We love Old School Family Feud with Steve Harvey. My daughter and I like to watch that. And then like work stuff, because I think it is what it is. Like you find little things that you kind of watch and you're kind of curious about. I like the weird forensic stuff. I like why do they think like that? What caused a person to do that? So I do get a little into the murder psychology type of thing.
You are a typical social worker, because I know a social worker that doesn't listen to and doesn't get so fascinated over murder shows. I love that. I binge watch that on Netflix. That I'm a murderer on Netflix. It's crazy. They tell their story. They tell their story, and then you're like, oh, they're so innocent. And then the police come in and say, let me tell you what evidence we collected. And you're like, oh, they totally lied through the whole.
Right? Or the videos of them in the room and stuff like that. And I'll be like, I'm looking for body language. I'm looking for all the stuff, right? I'm looking for all the stuff. So yes, I do love, that murder forensic type of stuff, because I'm curious. I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you want to do. Someone that will commit a crime like that. I mean, the one question you want answered is, what were you thinking? Like, what was going through your head? I mean, that's the question. And
I think with the nervous system doing this type of work, because a lot of my clients come in and they've done a thing, and they want to understand, what was I thinking? And so one of the big things about nervous system work and autonomic nervous system work is that once you tap into stress response or trauma response, you are no longer accessing your prefrontal cortex. Mm-hmm. You are no longer using your thinking brain.
No, you're not.
And I think that's been I give my clients get out of jail free cards. I think that's been a great tool. So I say, I'm going to give you your get out of jail free card. Is you can't, once you fall into what we call dysregulation, and you're completely consumed, but people call emotion, right? But I'm saying something else is activated where you feel you need to protect yourself, protection or connection. Your thinking brain goes offline.
It does.
It literally goes offline. So that's why when you do the thing and then you come back and you go, and you're trying to rationale with your partner and you're trying to make up stuff for why you did what you did, it never clicks. Mm-hmm. And then the trust never really gets resumed, because nobody's in there saying, hey, when this person was in this state, they were not in their right thinking self. So let's work, right, to understand the triggers and the things that lead up so that we don't get in that state and have the thinking brain go offline.
Yeah, and then that's how they start feeling good about themselves, because then people feel terrible. Yeah, and I just really hate online. They take, video of people who are at their worst. They're totally triggered, and they're at their worst, and they're acting and behaving totally different from what they believe is important. And you take a snippet of that video and you put that online, and everybody now sees this about you. And you're more than you were. You're more than just that 60-second video, and it's very disheartening sometimes. I think we need to be a little more compassionate and have a little more grace with each other, in consideration of what we now know about why people are human behavior and how we respond to things. We just need to have that more in our lives.
And I think it's coming. You're hearing more and more about the nervous system and neuroscience in schools, because we're acknowledging that environment is not very conducive to emotional states.
That's beautiful.
It's sit down, be quiet, do this thing, get the answer. That's just what we're doing in a lot of schools, not all schools, but a lot of the majority of the public school setting. Yeah. And so you're not really, where is the place that, hey, I'm just getting frustrated right now? Where is you got to have special education, you got to have an IEP, you got to have all this stuff to be allowed just to have your regular nervous system. So I think it's going to change and shift, because, the reality is that anxiety, we're now screening 8-year-olds. The new standard even for medical care is start screening 8-year-olds for anxiety.
Yeah, so, it is very real. This post-COVID world, we're in this post-COVID world.
You got it. So we're all doing the best we can, and I hope we've done a good job. I feel like we've done a good job of talking about the value and what you may gain from therapy. First off the bat, you're going to get a safe place, and if you've never had real true space to really just even allow yourself to fall apart, therapy is a great place for that. It's a great place for that. Work with your therapist, make sure you feel safe with your therapist. But if you can find a place where in our community, if it's not therapy, if you've got a communal healing group or even an activity where I really want to challenge all your listeners to really ask themselves, when does my nervous system feel the safest? When do I feel most, and that what does that mean? Most like myself, most able to be myself.
Yes.
And then look for the clues about what that environment is or who that person is. And guess what? Try to put more of that into your everyday, because that will build nervous system capacity, and that literally will rewire your brain. You're never too old to rewire that brain and to teach that nervous system new tricks. So think about, where do I feel like I can most be myself, even if it's a small little snippet, and just look for the clues in there and ask, how can I, even if it's just this one thing, oh, this person, they just always have this warm smile. I mean, for some people who are very, very isolated, it could be the person at your coffee shop who just always, when they see you, it never fails. They see you, they find you, and they smile at you. So what is that? What is it about that? It's that I feel seen by that person, you know, and that helps me. So being seen is a value and important for me. And that's what I need more of in my life.
I love that. I love that. It's almost like instead of getting rid of things, it's growing the things that are beneficial to you. It's also saying that you can teach an old dog new tricks. Your brain can be rewired. It's never too late. I always say that. It's never too late to find love. It's never too late to reinvent yourself. It's never too late to regulate your nervous system.
Yeah, perfect. That's perfect. It's never too late to regulate your nervous system. I love that.
Well, thank you, Nicole. This is great.
Thank you, Alicia. This has been wonderful.
Okay, we'll keep in touch, okay?
Yes, definitely.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.